following you with Give Me the Loot. When I was thinking about this film, I was pondering potentially there's a trilogy in the works. Youth culture. There's
I don't know. I kept making a joke that the first one was Bronx, this one's Queens.
Yeah.
We're gonna do the 5-borough story, 5-borough pieces. And that's like a half joke, but I don't think next. So no, I don't know. I didn't think about it in that way. There was a lot of ideas and projects that I was working on in between Loot and Tramps, and I just found this one sort of just clicked in. I wasn't looking to do another movie in New York, and in fact, I was sort of trying not to.
Yeah.
But I just got grabbed by the idea and grabbed by I could hear the characters almost immediately, and I was a little resistant because of the New York similarities.
Yeah, youth culture
and things like that. I think they're really very, very different story approaches, and I think our approach to the filmmaking is quite different. And I can talk about that too, but it's just really what happened was people around me, people that I work with, people I trust, I started to talk about the project, and they just said, "You're clearly really excited about it. You should do this. Like, people are like, oh, it's sort of like your first movie in some ways, in some setting ways, and things like that. It's like that's not enough. It's its own thing, and I was feeling it, so I did it. I'm really happy that I was encouraged to.
Well, I mean, there's similarities. I mean, urban jungle, but I think the pacing's a lot different, and I think it belongs to a different type of. Tonally, it's different, and it belongs to different genre worlds.
Yeah, it wanted to embrace classic romantic storytelling, classic Hollywood romantic storytelling, like looking at those beats, and I mean, it is a boy meets girl, opposites thrown together story, and we weren't running from that. That's one of the things that's very different than Loot, which is really a hangout movie, and it's a very observational and about exploring worlds through this sort of eye of youth and through the eyes of these characters. This was something where we were really taking, like, how do you tell this story, which is a beautiful type of simple story, but do it in a way that maybe it's gotten a little stale or a little anti. I think I was a little tired of seeing anti-romances, and I said, no, I want to deliver it. It's really hard to deliver it. I think it's harder to deliver it than to say, like, love doesn't work. Than to say, like, no, you can move, you can run, you can find it. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about the title, because I'm referencing Charlie Chaplin's title, and I'm also thinking about the Disney film. Is there any lineage to that when you're thinking about that, or you're thinking just strictly the definition of what these characters represent, which is vagabonds?
I think it was a title idea I had.
Okay.
And I think I really liked the title, and it just seemed to fit for the definition idea. And then this idea of, it was the multifold. It was wow, that is what they're doing. They're walking around. I mean, they're walking on trains, but they're traveling without money, at times wayward, at times, destitute. But then because there's a classicalness to the story and to the emotions and to the movie, I felt that those references in particular really came up for me really quickly. And just even the Tramp is said so much in that way. Then it transitions into more of like the loose woman definition.
Yeah.
If you go watch old movies, they call each other tramps a lot.
I think you redefine it and almost give it a positive definition, I think.
I hope so.
At least that's what the overall sentiment I got afterwards, because there is a negative connotation associated to the word tramp.
Right.
At least that's.
But because of Lady and the Tramp and because of the Tramp and things like that, you have.
Yeah, you circle back to an old.
You have this sort of like the lovable rascals of it.
Yes.
That is what the movie is, and so
You share co-writing duties on for this film. What was the part like? How does it work for the partition? And what are you specifically honing in on, and your co-writer?
Yeah, my co-writer Jamin Washington. So we ended up. I have a screenplay credit, and he has a story by co-story by show story credit. I worked with him on Loot as a producer. He really gave so much to that project. I'd worked with him previously on a short, but on Loot, he really became a really very strong creative voice as well as a producing voice. And so I came to him very, very early with the idea, and the idea was a little different tonally. Came to him really early, started talking about it, started talking about what we wanted to do. We were excited by the idea, and so I would write during the week. I would write through Thursday night. I would give him pages Thursday night. He'd read them, and Friday we would sit and meet for hours and talk about it, talk about the story, talk about whatever, in terms of the characters, in terms of anything. What if we did this? What if we did that? And then I would go back and write and do it again the next week. So we just did that week after week for months, about maybe 6 months, and we got something that we wasn't quite there, but it captured what we wanted to do, and then we just further developed it.
In the film program, they mention the MacGuffin. They mention Hitch, and I don't disagree with that because there are the suitcase, the traveling on trains. I'm thinking of Sabotage. I'm thinking of Saboteur. Right. I'm thinking of. Well, it's not really about that.
Right.
Were you informed, or you and your writing partner informed about classic Hollywood, or certainly Hitch, or was the cityscape perhaps something that?
It's interesting because we just answered this in the Q&A. In the Q&A you weren't at, but about. It's like the briefcase is really, really important for one character, but it's not one of the main characters, but it helps as a way into who that person is. And we talked about the briefcase a lot with that performer. I don't want to sort of say anything else in terms of that because it comes later in the movie, but I don't. Yes, of course it's there, and yes, of course we were aware of it. It just seemed like fun, and it seemed what we wanted to do was the Hollywood that we were more looking at was more Trouble in Paradise, His Girl Friday, really romantic adventures from the 30s, but throughout Hollywood. And so we wanted to do something that lit a match in a really interesting and exciting way, and so we just thought that was a fun way to light a match, and it became it's tricky to sort of balance that, but yeah.
It's when you watch films, you think of other film references, and sometimes you think of references that you would never have thought of. And one that came to mind was there's this Looney Tunes episode.
Oh my goodness!
Yes, and it's called, and I had to research the actual title for it. It's where did I write this? Oh, it's the It's called Bugs Bunny. Whatever hat they ends up on their head, they adapt that personality.
Wow.
And so they dream through garb or wardrobe a different life.
Right.
And and so this gets referenced and is part of I'll call it the fantasy element in this film, where they play dress up.
Yes.
And I don't want to give away any plot points, but I was wondering how important is that sequence in making these dual characters dream a dual fantasy, or somewhat the same dream.
It's a culmination. That sequence is a culmination of something that we're doing throughout the movie, which is they get to try, and it was really important for us always. We didn't always know what was going to happen, but it's really important that they left the city and came back, and that when they leave the city, that they're able to try on this idea of who they could be to each other. And they're very isolated in the city. Having them leave the city allowed us to isolate them in the frame, so that their relationship could develop. But really, more than that, thematically, it gave them a space where they're foreign, where they could sort of say, I'm this person, I'm that person, sort of play at being, and what they choose, I think, is very interesting too. And because there are these achievable things that they're so stuck in their lives, I think they seem almost outlandish to them.
Yeah.
So that they could try on a version of their best selves to each other.
Well said.
And then they sort of, in some ways, get to be maybe not exactly that in the sequence you're talking about, but that's an element of that. And so that's the fact that they're sort of literally changing sort of what they're wearing, and then hopefully by the end they have through their relationship with each other, they have this sort of kickstart to become their best selves, or to become a better self, or to start that journey. So I kind of sputtered out there a little bit, but yes, I think that's a very immediately as you were describing it, like I lit up, because that is really what we've been talking about a lot. That idea of them, these two people who are stuck in their lives and they're thrown together, and then over the course of these 2 days, as they're moving, they get to try on something different.
Yeah.
And through that, they through that with each other, they then change.
We'll end off with the pair that she ended up casting. Callum Turner and Grace Van Patten, who I sort of felt that she's in the same shell as Shailene Woodley. She sort of resembles her in the...
It's interesting, we get a lot of people. I've gotten so many, and I think it depends on what frame you stop on or what photo you see, but they're all really good people, and I think when you get a variety... I remember when I like a band, or like a band's new, and I read these different reviews about the band before I've heard them, and they're like... And it's 7 things that aren't alike,
Yeah.
It's like, they're like the Velvet Underground and Jay-Z. It's like, wait, what? And so we've gotten that with her, and I think that speaks to the fact that she's both reminiscent of people who can really hold the screen and deliver something beautiful and warm and unique, but also is her own.
She's a relative newcomer, I believe?
This is her screen debut.
Okay, so how do you go about informing a newbie on...
She is amazing.
Yeah, she's... The characters, we end up being totally engaged because they're relatable, they're believable, and there's a youthful charm that you could relate to no matter where you are in your own personal timeline. But tell me about how you informed her about the character. What kind of brainstorming, perhaps, if you had that?
Well, we did a lot of preparation. We did, with her, because Callum was in England, so I started with her earlier. So she did a couple months.
Okay.
With Callum, we did about 5 or 6 weeks.
Okay. Oh wow. Still.
Oh yeah, I do a lot of prep. I do a lot of prep, and so that involves a lot of things. But some of it's just talking about the characters, some of it's just talking about life and different experiences. And the movie, I think, is an emotional movie, and we tried to have emotional filmmaking and sort of really capture that feeling. And Grace is an actress that really, we worked on backstory, but what Grace really clicks into is just emotional mind state.
Yeah.
And so we talked a lot about that, and what she's showing and what she's not. We cut her hair. She'd really never cut her hair.
Okay.
I mean, she'd cut her hair before in her life, but her hair was very, very traditional, long blonde, and was down almost to her hips, and we chopped it off and dyed it black, and that I think just helped her take on Ellie. That became an Ellie moment for her. She could sort of get into that and again try on being Ellie.
Sort of School of Hard Knocks. She's lived a little bit on the edge, hard life.
We just talked about that, and a lot. How Ellie is always in the present. And in fact, when the past gets brought up to her, it's not even defense mechanism. It's not even total sadness. It's just like, it's not something, I'm in the present. And how Ellie exists like from here to here.
Yeah,
it's like the shortest little synapse. It's frontal lobe to eye, and that she's so in the present, and why that is, and what are those emotions under it, and how much Ellie's protecting that is something that Grace does very naturally, is very naturally good at. We talked about a lot, and we worked at a lot. She was really excited. She talks about it more eloquently than I do, but she says true to the characters, all of these layers to this character, and all of this history, and all of these emotions, and all of these sort of different wants, but how it's very
tucked away.
It's very tucked away. It's very.
There's an undercurrent, but it's not. Yeah.
There's an abruptness to it. Yeah, she's not letting that flow out, but it's so there. And how Ellie's always thinking, but you don't always know what she's thinking about. And I told her I didn't want to always know what Ellie was thinking about. I wanted her to always know what Ellie was thinking about, but and how she was feeling. But it was okay if I didn't, as long as she was really feeling those things. So I loved working with her. I was extremely lucky to work with her.
I really like how you how the characters essentially, when they get more inwards towards each other, how they do chip away at each other's armory or shields, and they let go of that, and I think that works especially well for their dynamic, but also just from the standpoint of a viewer. Like you get invested in a story that we've seen before.
Yeah, we are totally embracing that.
Yeah,
but we want to do it in a way that's different. There's an Altman quote about that we found while we were writing that just became sort of our manifesto.
Okay.
Like, that's what it is, and it's that idea of doing, not saying these things don't happen. It's everything. He's talking about McCabe and Mrs. Miller. He says it's everything you've seen before.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about that movie, in some ways it is. It's everything you've seen before. It's the guy who comes into town and takes over the town, becomes too big for his britches, and it's the hooker with the heart of gold, and the bad guys come, and there's a shootout, and everyone dies. And we see everything you've seen before. This was the key part. We're not saying that didn't happen. It did. Because people fall in love and they change their lives.
Yes.
People get thrown together. We're not saying that doesn't happen. We're just saying it didn't happen in the way that you've seen it. And that was like, that's it. That's what we're trying to do. That guy, I should check him out. Very big fan of it.
I don't know whether this is a comment or a question, but I really appreciate it. The scenes in Astoria, like it feels as if you stole shots. But I really like how you follow the characters with I think it's an extreme long shot.
It's like a 270-degree shot.
Yeah. You're
and
like
basically, they're very close to the camera, and then they walk down and they go around the corner, and then they come back down here. They're like down steps. We're perched above.
Yes.
And then they go to the phone.
Was that embedded? That visual strategy, was that part of?
It's something I did on Loot, and it's something that's really fun in terms of the production value and throwing them into the midst of the real city and having that energy be there. And I think it's fun for the actors, and I think it's fun for the viewer.
Yeah.
You feel it, and it's always tricky to not make it too cute and not to draw too much attention to it. So that one in particular, I think it works because there's so much energy in that moment, and he has to be so visceral and big on the street because it's all falling apart. And we did 40 takes of that. It was a really long day because the reset was incredibly long to do each time, and very hard for Ashley, our DP, too, because she's such a champion. She's so amazing because there's an incredible amount of zoom work in that shot. So you're panning and you're zooming in and out. And it's just fun. It was a fun way to tell the story of that scene. I'm interested in visual. I always want what's the visual storytelling of the scene in a way that hopefully doesn't feel gimmicky. Maybe this sounds like that scene is. I don't think that scene is. Hopefully it's not. And that scene was just one that was very, very hard for me to block out when it was on the page. Because it's continuous action, but they're crossing the street, and just like where would they exit frame, where do they pick them up, and I was sort of getting a headache. And then my friend Sam was taking me around, and he took me, or I met him there, and I was just like, oh my god, it just hit me. Like, this could be really fun, and we sort of timed it out.
There's great platforms just along that. I think it's I forget what train that is, the G train, or anyway.
Some stuff on the end.
That's
actually about
exactly.
the 7.
Oh, the 7, the 7 diamond circle, whatever, thank you very much, Adam, for your time, and continued success, and
thank you.
we'll see what happens. Thank you very much, appreciate it.
I'm going to check out the